and managed by the industry itself. So FINRA is not a government organization, but it is a government-like organization. So FINRA just posited a new rule that's going to require every single securities dealer in America to open up every single private account to FINRA's own computers. And FINRA claims that they want access to your account in real time so that they can monitor whether or not your broker is providing the right advice for you. But the reality is it's now impossible for Americans to conduct investments with any privacy whatsoever because they can't use an offshore broker. And now FINRA is going to have constant monitoring in real time of every single investment account in the country.
And then they'll leave Goldman Sachs and all the big boys alone and harass, just like the banking bill was meant to shut down credit unions and small banks. This is a total monopoly setup taking place where they can also nickel and dime and harass investment advisors that are out there. This is a total consolidation. Meanwhile, CNS News reports today, too big to audit. Large partnerships escape IRS scrutiny. The big billionaires and the globalists are literally above the law. This is all being written to hammer the middle class.
But think about what this will do. I mean, one of the core foundations of a free market is that the buyers in the market don't know for certain who all of the owners are of another security. And the SEC, for example, doesn't make people disclose that they own a particular stock until their interest in that company rises above a threshold, usually about 5%. And so that allows investors who are smart and savvy to go ahead and take an interest in a business without having their work or their idea stolen by other investors immediately. You see what I'm saying? So, Alex, if you happen to have a good reputation like Boone Pickens about oil and gas, and you're Boone Pickens, and you want your investors and yourself to take a position in a stock, you shouldn't have to tell everybody that in advance because that's going to make it impossible for you to build a position in that business or in that oil well.
So this is an NSA hub now directly into private investment to be fed to select interest.
Exactly. So what are the chances, right, that those FINRA computers end up getting bugged or monitored by the NSA? And what are the chances, of course, and I don't have any proof of this, but what are the chances that that information is surely being used in a lot of ways against people? And even something as simple as knowing, for example, how many individual investors own certain securities could be very, very valuable.
So they want this data to be able to rig the markets even more and truly kill the free market.
Exactly. I can't think of any other reason why someone would invest so much time and so much effort into trying to monitor every brokerage account in the United States in real time. That's an enormous technical challenge. And, of course, the only people with the authority to do it would be FINRA and the SEC. So this idea was proposed today, so it's brand new as far as I know. And if you're right about the way the world is going, then nothing will stop it.
Porter, can we go to Stansberry Research? Where do we find a news article about this? Because this is the first I've heard of this.
I don't know that we have written about it yet because it literally just happened this morning. So I would just recommend, if you want to learn more, you just go to Google and Google FINRA, F-I-N-R-A, FINRA and computer monitoring, and I'm sure that the article will pop up.
FINRA, F-N-R-A, computer monitoring. We're going to skip this network break. This is so important. I mean, that's what I see as just a general analyst who looks at the whole world and then connects the dots. Everything is having the ultra-high frequency trading systems put into it. Everything's being meshed. All the corporations are dialing in. And Google and the NSA admit they can now predict the future, but then only the insiders are able to have that intel, completely rigging the entire system for themselves and trying to pull up the ladder so none of us can ever excel. This is a new dark age we're talking about, Porter.
Yeah, and the other big trend I wanted to give people is that, I have a lot of hard data to support Alex Jones' idea about the death of the middle class. In fact, one of the main investment themes in my newsletter for the last 3 years has been the death of the middle class. And so, for example, one of our latest recommendations was Rent-A-Center. And there's a huge growth in rent-to-own business because people's credit is so shot. 39% of Americans have lowest ranked subprime credit, so they can't buy any kind of capital good anymore. And the rent-to-own industry, instead of building out more rent-to-own stores, is now just putting financing kiosks inside other furniture retailers so that there isn't the stigma anymore of having to rent furniture. So what happens is you go to buy furniture, and the furniture store says, I'm sorry, you don't qualify for a loan, but you can rent-to-own, and you can do that in our store. And that is driving tremendous new volumes of business to Rent-A-Center, actually, which is the pioneer in that market. That's one example of the death of the middle class that I found shocking. The other thing I found shocking when I looked at the numbers, Alex, guess how many of the loans that General Motors makes to retail car buyers are subprime?
Amazing. Keep going here. And by the way, I did type in FINRA rule. FINRA rule change to limit self-trading approved. They admit that they're going to place an algorithm onto the trading desk of everyone, basically. Anybody that trades stocks, anything, and it's going to surveil everything you do. And the algorithm is going to say if you're doing something wrong or insider trading or naked shorts. Basically, this outlaws normal activity, but it's not even outlawing it. It's regulatorily saying it can't happen, but then letting the insiders engage in every crime imaginable, like derivatives marketing and the rest of it. This is incredible.
Well, the stated purpose of the FINRA rule, in my opinion, most likely has nothing to do whatsoever with the real purpose of the new FINRA monitoring. And the real purpose is that this is the most valuable information that could exist in the world. You don't even need to be a high-frequency trader. If you know what everyone owns and what everyone's trading, you can get in front of them immediately. So just think about how it's likely to be abused. But
this is real-time, total control of the trading desk before they even file stuff. This is literally like someone in your investment firm standing over your shoulder.
Yeah, and it's not just in my firm. It's in literally, it would be in every single retail account. So there wouldn't be an account anywhere that wasn't being monitored in real time by FINRA. This is absolutely the most Orwellian thing that I have ever seen in finance, and I thought I'd seen it all, but this is a whole different level.
Well, that's the issue here, Porter, is that everything has been lined up, beta tested, prepared. Now it's all going into overdrive. And it says here, the government will monitor you in real time for unethical policies or procedures, and that originating with an algorithm on your trading desk. And it's everything you just said. While you were talking, I read this memo. Most of it, it's 4 pages long. I am completely blown away right now. I mean, this is live time, hidden in plain view, NSA systems controlled by J.P. Morgan and Goldman Sachs, who have their arms in all of this through the Federal Reserve, giving the private Federal Reserve total surveillance of everything. I mean, this is the end of the market.
Well, listen, I want to be clear. With the story that I have seen so far, this is a FINRA rule, and FINRA is a privately controlled regulatory body that's run by the securities industry. But it definitely has very close ties, of course, to the other regulators you mentioned.
No, but what I'm saying is the NSA, this is how it works. This is on record, folks.
I know. Alex, I know.
No. I mean, I know you know, but let me explain. You've got the big universities, the military, Google, Facebook, Twitter, Microsoft, and a handful of others that have full access to basically everything because they, in turn, dump everything they get into it. And the regulators all have these master heads-up displays where they can get into your bank account lifetime, everything. Everything is now online, and this is going to force the individual investment firms into that database for full access. I mean, do you disagree with that statement?
I can't prove any of those things that you said, but this is very, very disturbing to me, and I feel like it is incredibly suspicious. There is no regulatory need for real-time monitoring of accounts. The idea that FINRA can prevent financial crimes by monitoring your account in real time is nonsensical. So there must be another reason for it, and I know the value of that information that they're trying to collect.
Look, this is 100 light years ahead of Nixon having people's income tax returns. I mean, we see them using all this. They're going to leak this to the media. They're going to claim insider trading politically on everybody. This is a reign of bloody terror. In fact, I found a Money Beat article in the Wall Street Journal that just came out. Get ready for regulators to peer into your portfolio.
Right.
And
I know that's what we're talking about. It's I'm telling you, Alex, I have never seen any kind of violation of privacy of this magnitude ever suggested before. This is really, 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 truly scary.
Well, it's beyond the NSA because the government illegally spying on your data. Ooh, it's a big felony. And then meanwhile, you have these governmentally empowered private consortiums. That's why I said Federal Reserve, same deal, masquerading as government that aren't.
Right.
And then they say, we're going to literally lifetime watch everything you're doing. This is outrageous.
So this is all part, of course, of a much larger strategy, is the paradigm that I've heard you espousing. And I have some reservations about that, as you know. I think people are sort of just all acting in their own best interest. But certainly, we're not moving in the right direction. And I'd love to give you a stat about that. We're talking about the destruction of the middle class and how the growth of rent-to-own furniture is soaring again and doing it in a new way. That is,
it's like the payday loans, all of it, where people are captured in the system, can never get out of it.
Never getting out of it, right. But how about this? So the economy is supposed to be doing great, and the government saved General Motors, and now General Motors sales are booming, and everything is going to be great, right, Alex? Except for, do you know what percentage of General Motors cars that are sold, that are financed, what percentage of those financings are subprime? Any idea?
I have no idea.
Well, what do you think a reasonable number might be? I mean, if you were going to just guess, maybe 10%, 15% of car loans will be subprime, maybe 25%? It's 90%, Alex.
Well, that's what I was going to say. They're absolutely raking people over the coals everywhere. And it's a debt paradigm that will collapse. How many of General Motors' sales, right? Because almost everyone that buys a new car finances it. So how much of those sales are just being manufactured by these ridiculously low interest rates and by giving credit to people who are not creditworthy? And wait a minute, didn't we just do this in the housing market? So we have a government that had a vested interest in the success of a private business, which was General Motors. And the reason why is because of the union. So the government can't allow the union to fail, ergo it can't allow General Motors to fail. So we spent $50 billion of taxpayer money to bail out General Motors, losing about $15 billion along the way. Meanwhile, the unions took no haircut whatsoever. And they're creating a new bubble that people can't pay, then they'll lose their credit being raked over the coals. So, right. So just to be clear, the bondholders lost 90 cents on the dollar, and the unions lost nothing on the dollar, and they didn't have a single penny of their pension fund discounted for the failure of their company. Okay? Meanwhile, the only way that General Motors is able to generate the revenue they have today is by giving people cars who have no credit. And what do you think is going to happen? Well, you know it's going to happen. These people are not going to be able to pay these loans. The cars are going to get repoed sooner or later, and the whole thing is going to devolve into another bubble. And if you want to see evidence of this happening, just look at how many consumer finance companies, that is, companies that finance the purchase of automobiles specifically, have gone public in the last 6 months. All these companies failed in 08 and 09. They got bought for pennies on the dollar by private equity firms. They've now come back, all by giving credit to people who don't deserve it, and now they're all selling out to the public. Meanwhile, the default rate on loan securities, on debt securities that are backed with automobiles, the default rates are beginning to creep up, and the value of these securities is beginning to fall. And right before the whole house of cards collapses, you've got Wall Street selling these firms back to the public, and you've got General Motors rushing cars out the door with phony paper as fast as they can. So let's be clear, just like the housing bubble, they're not just giving people loans that they'll never be able to pay back. They are selling these loans as derivatives. Do we have any idea how many times they're selling them over and over again? That's exactly what's happened. So if you look at the entire asset-backed credit market, the only two areas of growth in the last 5 years are student loans and automobiles. So student loans are all owned by the government, so there's no point even discussing. And Obamacare is targeting young people as well. Stay there. I think I know where you're going with this, but one of the top experts out there, Porter Stansberry, is our guest. I just have to do 30 minutes of overdrive to take calls today because I want to really go through. I guarantee he's got like 10 other bombshells to drop on us. And I just got to get this guy on more often. You hear that, Porter? You got to start coming on, maybe even with a weekly update. Of course, he has his own radio show as well. You can find out more about that on his website. We'll give you that on the other side. Stay with us. I'm Alex Jones.
We're on the march.